Hey guys, not very many people here today, which is totally fine. Um, like I said on Friday, we're gonna go take a quick look at the focusing mechanism and how I've applied it to other lenses. So this is my Polaroid. This is my Polaroid adaptation or adapted Polaroid one-step lens. It's like 110 millimeter focal length. Um, So it uses the same type of focusing mechanism here. It doesn't use the helicoil because, like I said last time on Friday, the helicoil is somewhat finicky to design, like consistently to find a consistent way of developing it so that every lens that I put together is going to be exactly the same, and it takes less end user knowledge with this kind of assembly for me to send out these STLs and have somebody assemble them without any issue, right? Um, there's almost no way that you can put it on incorrectly. Um, Let me just adjust that. There we go. Yeah, so in the end, this type of construction where it has, um, I guess, pins riding on a track, it makes everything much easier to assemble on the end user side, and also it makes things easier for me to develop. And what I want to go through today is a simple demonstration on how, I guess, on how effective it is, really, how easy it is to make something like that, so that you can simply enter parameters, so you know the distance that you need to travel, um, you know the angle of throw that you want it to rotate. Um, and with that basic information, you can um, make a focusing mechanism that is fairly accurate and fairly easy to reproduce. But the only caveat is that you need a resin printer so that you get finer steps in detail. I tried to do this with regular FDM, filament printing, but it's the nature of 3D printing with filament is that you'll always have steps. You won't be able to eliminate those steps without proper post processing. Um, and this resin printing is just much more detailed and accurate for what we want to do here with the focusing mechanism. So, um, with that said, let me show you one of my favorite lens rehousings. This is for the Canon uh, EF mounts originally, but I wanted it for I wanted to use it on my FD body, this FTB here. So I tore it apart. I went onto eBay and I picked up a broken 40 millimeter EF body, and all it really was missing was um, there was a gear that was broken on the focusing motor, and if I remember correctly, it had something to do with this here. Actually, I think that's no, this. So it had to do with the focusing motor. There was a gear that either it was missing a tooth or it wasn't meshing correctly. So with a little finagling, I was able to actually fix it. But my purpose wasn't to fix it. I wanted to adapt the lens to my Canon FD body. Um, and I keep these parts here only because I'm going to be doing a proper video. Otherwise, I just toss everything because I don't really need this. But yeah, so the uh, FD body, or the FD um, version of this 40 millimeter has the same um, degree of travel. So I measured it at about 8 millimeters for the focusing, from where it is to infinity to, I think it's what is this, 0.3 meters, or about a foot. So it was 8 millimeters of travel, and you can see here it's a little stuttery. This was the first version that I did, so I still need to go back and fine tune a few things. There are a few hardware, I guess, things that I need to take care of too. I use some very fine, um, like M1.2, M1.3 screws, and it's not right for this application. Huh. So it looks like we're having stuff. Okay, we're back. We were having some issues with the streaming connection, but it looks like we're doing well now. But yeah, this it uses the same bayonet style, or the breech lock style mount that the FD does, and that a lot of my lenses use. Right, they use this breech lock mount versus the traditional bayonet where you just twist it on. Um, it has aperture stops, and these aperture stops are based off readings I took on my Sony, based off this guy right here, right? So I throw the lens on there with an FD to Sony E mount adapter, and then I would take readings with 40 millimeters at the certain apertures, and if I got that same reading with this guy, I would mark that this is where 2.8 is, uh, 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 16, and 22. So I mean, they're all rough estimates, but I think with film, there's enough latitude that you can still get images on your frames correctly. And I haven't had an issue with it. I've taken it out a couple of times, and every time they've exposed correctly based on the values I have on LightMe, on the LightMe app. Um, so I mean, I think they're good enough for what it is, right? Uh, I don't have anything to accurately measure t stops or apertures and stuff like that. But for the most part, it works the way it should. Um, and this is using the same focusing mechanism that I use on this, but for making me able to use a fully electronic lens on my Canon FD bodies. So with that, let's get into how, if you're interested in it, you can stay and watch. If not, you can come back in a little bit later. We'll do the lens assembly. But I want to show you guys on my iPad how I do this. So today I'm going to introduce you to what I use. This is Shaper 3D, and it basically lets me design uh, what I need to, right? It's super intuitive. Um, so let's say there are a few parameters that you need, right? So you want uh, the distance of travel to focus. Let's say that's like, let's say 10 millimeters, right? And then you want your focus throw. Your focus throw can be anywhere from like 100 degrees to whatever, right? Because it has to be divided by 3. So you have 360, you want to divide that by 3, you get 120. And then you need to account for the pin material, right? The pin thickness or width. So that's like 3 millimeters. So give or take, a safe area to start with is 100 degrees for um, your focus throw, right? Generally, I put mine around 90 or um, 60, somewhere around there. And that gives me a comfortable throw. It's quick, it's effective, and it gives enough meat left on the focusing mechanism. Like you can see here, that this is probably like 60 degrees of focus throw, and it gives you a lot of meat here in between, so that the ring itself is still solid enough and it won't flex or break while you're doing that action. Um, so it was hard for me to visualize how to do this initially, but if you know basic geometry, you're okay, right? So you know what your focus, you know what your focus distance is, and you'll figure out what your arc is, or I guess what the. So basically, you're doing this, right? You're doing a little pizza cutout. So this length here is going to be this is A, B, C, right? So we're doing Pythagoras. We'll call this length here is going to be B, and then your distance here is going to be A. So all you're doing is Pythagoras when you want to figure out um, there's a certain amount of travel that you need. All right, so let's jump into it without my insistent rambling. Right, so we have a circle here. We'll call this like 60 millimeters, and 66. This is going to be our focusing ring. Um, and we want we'll say like a 72 degree. We want a 72 degree angle of throw. So it's a relatively short one. Um, so you can choose either the interior or the exterior circle diameter or the circumference. I think at the distances we're talking about here, it doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do here is that, and then we're going to select this, or we're going to trim that exterior, and we're going to see what this value here is. So that value, 41.469, is what our B is going to be for our Pythagoras triangle. So we know that we need 41.5. I'm just going to round it up to make it easier. 41.5 millimeters as our B. We know our A is 10 millimeters. So let's go ahead and extend this. This ring has to be thicker, or yeah, thicker than 10. So we'll do 15. You know what? Might actually do 20. So we can do 20. And then what we want to do next is we're going to introduce a construction axis through the cylinder or the cone. And then we're also going to add a construction plane through the edge at an angle here next, and we'll just zero that out. And then we know that this exterior is 66 millimeters. We can bring this out 33 millimeters so that we get that plane on the face of the um, that exterior circumference. So we're going to draw this established line, and we know that our pinheads are about 3 millimeters. So we can say that we need 6 millimeters, give or take. 3, 3, and then from point to point. Okay. So I think 3 is where we're going to be at. 3, 3. Then we have 3 for the pinhead, 3 for the pinhead. And then on center, we're going to have 11 millimeters. So I guess 3.5? Yeah, let's do 3.5. 3.5. 3.5 here. 3, 3. And then from point to point, okay. So we're looking at 3.25. I want to block that. Call that 3. This guy will be 3. From center point to center point. Okay. Whatever. Let's just go with 10.5 as our focus throw. So we draw our pin circles here. So what we want to do from here is what we're going to do is simply we're going to take this shape here and we're going to rotate it on its axis 90 degrees so it's perpendicular with the cylinder, and then we need to rotate it a certain amount of degrees. And the way that we know what that degree is for the tilt is we're going to look at Pythagoras here. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a triangle. So I want to travel 41.5 degrees, or 41.5 millimeters. Right, so if we were to take this shape here and we were going to revolve it, we're going to revolve it around this axis. We're going to say, well, we know we want 72 degrees, right? But we also want a height here, which is 10.5. And while that works, what happens is that we don't have a perfect circle here, right? So our pin is going to get stuck here, and we can see that that's going to get affected, right? So we know 10.5 and 41.5 is our triangle. We know 72 degrees is the angle that we need, but the last thing we need to figure out is um, what degree we need to rotate this so that this top circle is aligned with the bottom circle, and the edge of here is rotated within that circle. I know it's so this is where Pythagoras comes in, right? Um, if I jump over to my computer, let me plug in Pythagoras. So our A value is 10.5, B value is 41.5. So the length here is 42.807. And then what we can also do from there, because it's a right triangle, is that we can find the degree of this here and this here in relation to that, because of side angle side, all that geometry stuff that I really don't know, but use a computer to figure out. So we only need to find one angle, and we can say we want to find that angle there. So 10.5, 90, 7.5. All right, so what we have for these angles here, this one here would be about 75.8, and this here 14.2. We're going to round, and it should be fine. And what we can do from there is we can rotate this entire guy. Oops. We'll call it 14.2. What I want to do here is then we can go ahead and revolve around that guy 72 degrees and 10, negative 10.5. So that is properly rotated so that when we create that track, the pin heads will align with the track itself so that we won't have any issues in terms of stair stepping or biting or making it rougher than it actually needs to be. So what we can do here is we can simply say done, and we're going to copy that 3 times or 2 times. and then we're going to subtract it. No, we don't want to. That gives us our basic track, and then we can take this circle here. We're going to extrude that into the body itself. We're going to take this guy down here. Going to move him 72 degrees. Then extrude into there, and then the last thing we need to do is copy it across. So 120 and 240. So there you go. That's a basic focusing track that moves 10.5 millimeters forwards and backwards at a focus throw of about 72 degrees. And that will be able to be printed accurately, reliably, and the assembly on the end user side, if you're sending out STLs like this, is so much easier than having to finely tune helicoil focusing mechanism. Yeah. So you can apply it to different things. Different things like this guy here, so that we can get fine focus control, or something like a Polaroid land camera that never was really supposed to focus. After I made this, after I adapted this lens, I quickly realized that the people at Polaroid, pretty smart folks, right? And the aperture that they set for it, the focus distance they set for it, is probably the absolute limit of what that lens is capable of. But for me, it's never really about absolute limits. What it is understanding and being able to um, adapt unique characteristics of camera lenses to modern digitals, or really to wherever I wanted to. This one actually is for Canon FD, right? There's quite a bit of flange distance in this land camera so that I can actually use it here. I have a short video coming up with it, but I need to have better scans of the images, and I think I need to take it out again, because without flocking on the inside, there's so much internal reflection that you get there's like hazing or loss of contrast in the center of the image, because there's again too much internal reflections, because this PETG is kind of glossy. But I mean, overall it handles well, it shoots well. It's just ironing out some of the small details to get a better image developed. Yeah, this is quite possibly one of my favorite lens adaptations, only because there is no 40 millimeter on the Canon FD line, and now there is, right? It's right here. It's this guy here. This guy's 40 millimeter street photography monster, right? It was a monster on the EF line. It's going to be a monster on the FD line once I release the STLs. It's not for the faint of heart. You've got to do some grinding on the um, lens assembly. But if you're careful and if you take your time, uh, you'll be fine. Excited about that. All right, so with the focus elements out of the way, let's get back to assembly. And We've got another set of 10 here that are in almost ready to go stages, right? So we've got to add the assembly or the focus ring, and then like this guy here, we've got to add that here. The lens face is the last step we'll do, which is basically just this guy, and we just pop that in. But I like to finish up with this because I need to make sure everything works before sealing off this side here. So we've got, let's see here. We've got 8 Sony E mounts and 2 RF mounts that we're doing for 70 or for 60 through 70. Classic black. So this makeup is what we're looking at today. So yeah, stick with me today. We'll talk about stupid stuff while I assemble the lens here. And we're gonna work on this guy here first. It's a classic black lens, right? So it's all black and no colors. Set that aside. Set this aside. So I was watching She's All That the other day while doing some work on these lenses. And the reason I was watching it is because one of my favorite lampoons or parody movies is Not Another Teen Movie. And if you haven't seen that, that's quite possibly one of the best parody movies out there, right? The casting is on par or superb. The acting is superb. It it so effortlessly lampoons, these John Hughes, 16 Candles, 10 Things I Hate About You movies, right? And after watching She's All That, I realized that it's literally a shot-for-shot remake of She's All That. Not Another Teen Movie is almost a shot-for-shot remake of She's All That. It's great. It's hilarious. There are so many things that I missed in my first watching of Not Another Teen Movie because my assumption is that it was lambasting the John Hughes movies from the 80s, but man, it it is such a great movie. I was talking to my buddy and I was saying the protagonist in She's All That is named Lacey Boggs, and to me, Lacey Boggs seems much more of a parody name than Janie Briggs from Not Another Teen Movie. it's it's goddamn great. Uh, the in what they were able to pull off, which is why I was looking up covers for Bizarre Love Triangle because there's a scene in Not Another Teen Movie where you have the unrequited love interest chasing Janie to the airport. It's just hilarious, guys. If you watch the stream prior to this, um, you'll know that this is a slow and tedious process to get focus working smoothly, right? I have to check and recheck and make sure that everything runs smoothly. Huh. Still very rough. Good. Better. Still hangs up somewhere here. Good. 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 All right. So I want to see how this runs in the focusing track, so we're going to add some lubrication to it. Seems to be having some sort of streaming issue with. Oh, come on. There we go. We're having some streaming issues today. Connection here seems spotty. Yeah, it seems very spotty. Something's going on today. What seems to be the issue with the streaming today? Internet connection today, man. What's going on? Oh, come on. All right. Well, it's going to be a rough one today, guys. So I've been trying to find a new game to play with my buddies. Right now, Hunt Showdown seems to be the easiest one to get into. We were trying Scum out the other day, and I guess these higher level, I guess people who grind it a little harder or have more time to grind, just waited for us in the forest and killed us. It's bonkers. We didn't even do anything to them. They just come out with their AKs and their sniper rifles and kill the entire team. But right now, Scum seems all right. Mechanics seem all right. I wish there was a little more in terms of the gameplay, like missions or something other than just hard grinding cities or going to events or getting killed in the forest at night because somebody's just waiting out there, being a scum. Uh, Hunt Showdown seems to is uh, it's so much easier just to get into, have a few quick games, and then log for the night. Um, oh, there it is. There it is. Look at that. Look how smooth that is. Very good. I'm gonna head upstairs real quick. I think I got an Amazon delivery, and this is, if you see back there, got a broken iMac, a 20-inch that I kept since my first year at UC Davis. It no longer works, so I'm going to see if the LCD still works, and I'm going to turn it into a monitor so that I can run the Mac Mini, which is down there, running, controlling all the 3D printers, right? So the Mac Mini controls all 3D printers. I run it headless, unless I have some sort of issue with the printers, then I'll hook up the keyboard and stuff. Um, Mac Mini runs Ubuntu, not Mac OS, but I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I'm back. Let's open this up. I gotta get the suction cups to take the screen off. Alright. Oh, easy enough. That's crazy. Well, there it is. Let's set that aside. Alright, that's good for now. That's good to know, so I can take everything apart. Can I tell you one thing that I hate? Absolutely hate? I hate Torx screws. Torx screws are the stupidest thing I've ever encountered in terms of hardware or securing hardware. Torx screws are the absolute worst. They're literally the only thing that they use on Jeeps, except for, critical engine parts. Every time I have to work on the Jeep, I have to break out a set of SAE sockets, a set of metric sockets, and then a set of Torx sockets. And it just bothers me because the connection. Well, I mean, it makes no sense to use that when there are better fasteners out there, right? I might be missing something with the Torx fastener, and I probably am. But if I can secure something with a simple hex cap, why wouldn't I, right? A standard SAE or metric hex cap. It makes no sense to use Torx bolts or Torx fasteners when Jeeps are notoriously known to rust, right? So every bolt that's a torque wrench, I've stripped the interior of it, right? To the point where I can no longer take it out except by drilling it out. And that's what I've had to do for so many things on the Jeep. It's absolutely ridiculous. Daimler Chrysler, if you guys still own Jeep, please stop using Torx wrenches or Torx fasteners. They're bane of my existence, and there's no reason for me to have to pick up another set of sockets just for the Torx fasteners when they serve no purpose. So with the Mac back there, I might just make it into another screen, or I might make it into like a docking station for my laptop, which is what I use to stream everything and what I use to really do everything. Uh, uh, well, I guess you can't see it. It's over there though. So it's either making a screen for the Mac Mini or making a docking station with a screen for the laptop. You know, I was pretty hesitant on doing live streaming only because I'm, like a pretty introverted person. I don't really care for being seen, right? Like that's how I was raised. I was always able to get by skirting under the radar. I don't like being seen. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Um, but it's not too bad. Like I could just talk about whatever I want to. Um, and really, it's like I'm not being seen by anybody because nobody's here, which is even better, right? Like I don't have to worry about things so much. I think I think that's my problem, you know. I worry quite a bit about things that in all actuality don't matter. Um, and the live streaming and the YouTube stuff is kind of getting me past that, um, getting me out of my zone of comfort or my comfort zone to try new things and to, I guess, try to open up to the world more so than I've done in the past. And uh, it's nice. It's not as exhausting as I thought it would be, right? Getting the initial setup going might have been a little exhausting, but doing it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday um, is very nice. It's so these all seem to be binding at the same place. It's roughly halfway. There's like a little a little spur that's getting caught. So I think I need to pick up like a small vacuum just to pick up these resin shavings. I'm pretty sure it's not good for my health to inhale all this stuff. But I mean, I think I've inhaled worse doing woodworking. I've done a few epoxy tabletops, and I've routinely not worn a mask while doing sanding. So, I mean, at some point, I think I'll be getting lung cancer. Um, Generally, it's because I'm too lazy to put a dust mask on. And for the times that I do, I had the Noshi half face mask with the organic vapor filter, which gets literally everything, right? Because I'd have to spray finishes, which also releases VOCs, and generally not good for your health to be inhaling VOCs, organic or otherwise. Um, and that's really the only time I would wear the face mask is either long work periods of having to sand stuff or spraying down a clear coat or a stain or something like that. If there's one thing I hated doing the most is clear coating, right? It's super rewarding, but the the amount of preparation that you need and the amount of cleanliness and generally the space that you need for a clear coat, a good proper clear coat is um, so much, right? You have to make sure the surface is clean, there are no oils, there's the stain or whatever that you put under is fully cured, so it doesn't craze or create orange peel on your clear coat. Uh, Clear coating was the bane of my existence. When I was doing longboards, I think it was a little bit easier. But for some reason, I never, I was never happy with the results that I got from my clear coats. I mean, they were good, right? Like they were clear coats, hard, very minimal unevenness in the finish. But I could never get that crystal clear finish, right? That surfboard finish. That's what I was always after, man. It was impossible to get um, with the limitations of my own knowledge. Not that it's impossible to get, but it's rather um, limitations of my own knowledge and my inability to, at the time, reflect on what I needed to do. Um, I think now maybe I'll try it again. Maybe I'll. When I say longboards, I mean like skateboard longboards with trucks, stuff like that. Um, the the graphic part was relatively easy for me. I do a mix of screen printing or printing out graphics on PSA or on vinyl with PVA backed vinyl, pressure sensitive, adhesive backed vinyl. Um, I print, I mainly print them. This was on an older WF, an Epson WF 1100. Um, they could print up to 44 inches by like 10 or 11 inches, and my longboards were generally under 44 inches. They topped out about 42 inches. So I would just print them. I got the that external tank connector, the CIS, continuous ink system, or CISS, continuous ink supply system. Um, so I'd run, I think it was dye-based pigments or dye-based inks for longer longevity, or for better longevity and better UV properties, right? I think if you go outside and if you look at signage, you can see that for signs that have been out there for a long time, you'll generally see them faded, and you'll see certain colors removed because the sun's or the UV rays from the sun have broken down those pigments. Um, and that's what I was after. I was after a durable print, a durable pigment that would last a long time on my longboards. And I think dye-based are generally more UV resistant than your regular pigment-based. If I remember, it's been a while since I've done it, so all this information is kind of in the back of my head somewhere. The I think the last board that I had, I gave away. I'm a very big proponent of if things are just sitting and not being used, I'd rather them be given to somebody to use than to sit around and collect dust. You know, I that's what I wanted to do with longboards. I think I don't know. There's something very freeing about longboarding. It's something I can't quite put my finger on. Um, I used to do a lot of longboard or long distance longboarding. Well, I guess not a lot. I used to do long distance longboarding. The first time was right after I graduated college. I went from, um, if you're familiar with California and the Sacramento area, I went from Elk Grove, which is a suburb south of Sacramento, and I longboarded all the way to San Francisco. Just because, really, I had nothing else to do, and it was just, something that was interesting enough for me to do. And that first time, it was all right. Like I experienced major cramping in my legs. Um, I kind of wanted to die a lot during then because it was 100 miles of just apparently the hottest summer of California for the time, right? So it's like upwards of 100 degrees in the Central Valley. And oh my God, the amount of times I just wanted to die or give up was amazing. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just easy to keep putting one foot forward, and you'll eventually get to where you need to be, and that's kind of what happened. And uh, while I didn't, while the plan was to make it to San Francisco, you can't technically cross into San Francisco on foot yet because at that time they were talking about creating a pedestrian walkway on the new Oakland Bridge. Yeah, I think if I had gone south through San Jose and then up the peninsula to the Bay Bridge, I'm pretty sure I could have gotten through there, but that was much longer than I wanted to. So the Oakland Bridge, or I think it is the Bay Bridge. The Golden Gate is the one with the pedestrian walkway. The Bay Bridge is the one they recently uh, built again with subpar materials for some reason. But that's supposed to have a pedestrian walkway, which you should be able to walk that way. Um, you know, that was my plan, right, to walk across, but you can't. So I went to Oakland and I took the ferry over from Oakland into San Francisco. Um, Wait, no, 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 that was the second time after I had quit a job in graphic design. The first time, what I did was, uh, no, second time, no, that was the first time. Second time, I went from Elk Grove again to San Francisco, but my intention was to longboard to Mission Peak and then hike Mission Peak. And from Mission Peak, uh, I would head over. So it was San Jose. I went to San Jose instead of going to San Francisco. So I hiked Mission Peak. I came back down, and then I went to the East Bay Depot, which is the Amtrak station for San Jose. And it was closed on that Sunday that I went, but the people there were nice enough to let me sit in their little cafe while I waited for the train. So if you do happen to stop by the East Bay Cafe, or if you stop by San Jose, stop by the East Bay Cafe. Um, they're super nice. They were nice enough to accommodate me and give me a place to wait for the Amtrak in the hot, hot California sun. But yeah, to me, I think everybody should longboard. There's a great sense of feel or freeingness in longboarding. I think people should experience at some point. I also think that long distance longboarding or just longboarding in general appeals to me greatly because we moved around a lot as a kid or when I was a kid, and I feel at home on the road, right? It feels very awkward for me to be in one place. And generally, when I stay in one place too much or too long, um, I'll get antsy. I I really do think it's because of my childhood and moving from, California to Minnesota and then from city to city in Minnesota uh, and then back to California. You never really had a place to call home. And what was home was, whatever you had in your hand or whatever you had in your bag. And I still am trying to get there again, to that point where I can just be on the road and not have to worry about anything. Um, these spaces of transition is kind of where I live, right? That's what feels um, the most like home to me. I like airport terminals, train terminals, being on the road. I'm much more interested in the journey rather than the destination. Um, just trying to find my way back there, however I can. Um, and I'm hoping that I get, once, this stuff takes off, or once I put more work into it, that I can outfit the Jeep and just travel the U.S. for a while, right? To be by myself and uh, just observe the world for a bit instead of having to be in the world. Right? I don't particularly feel comfortable in the world because I don't feel that I belong so much in this world. Not that I think I'm better than the world. It's just that that I don't think I fit in the world, right? I don't think I'm a person enough to be in this world. I feel like an observer and an outside person looking in and wondering why I can't be like everybody else, why I can't have regular relationships or, um, things like that. Why I can't just be uh, a person, right? Like somehow everybody else has like the manual on how to be a person, and I'm stuck here with nothing, right? Like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I don't know, man. So yeah, that's where I'm trying to get. Trying to get to the point where I can just continually be on the road with no particular place to go and no particular destination, no motivations to go or stop anywhere except where I'd like to um, see. And I don't think it's, well, I think it is somewhat of an absurd idea to have. I just can't see anything else. Oh, right. So the idea for the Jeep, I have a soft top right now, and well, I love the soft top and its general ability to be a convertible when I need it to, or on sunny days and not have to worry about storage. I think long-term travel of soft top is not the most practical. So what I'm looking to do is to custom build a fiberglass top um, after getting a proper roll cage installed. I've seen a lot of accident rollover videos and pictures with Jeeps where the stock, sport roll cage is completely crushed. It's not an actual roll cage at all. It's just, I think it's merely aesthetics. Um, what I need to do is, to properly outfit a Jeep for off-road and for things like that is to make sure your roll cage is actually a roll cage, and then to build on top of that, a fiberglass hard top or carbon fiber, whichever way I choose to go, whichever is the cheapest. More than likely fiberglass, but what I want to do is build a roll cage that has storage for at least 20 liters of water on the top. So water sits on top, and then everything underneath is just storage for whatever I need. And then I plan on swapping out front driver and passenger seat for um, I think it's 2009 to about 2012 Nissan Frontier seats, because these are the passenger folds flat, but the driver doesn't. I swap them out just so that everything looks matched, or everything matches. But the passenger seat front seat is fold flat, which gives me enough room that I can lay it flat to create a flat surface that rides across for a sleeping area. Um, I don't know if I'd want to fold flat as the driver's seat, only because I won't be having any passengers, and I'd like to have a much more structurally sound seat as the driver's seat in case of an accident. Um, but yeah, that's the rough idea, the general idea. I don't necessarily want to lift, but I might want bigger tires. Right now I'm running stock 295s, I think. So I mean, we're still in the stock 15-inch aluminums. So for this most current stream, I'm using a different camera lens. I'm using the Tokina 28 to 70 f2.8 ATX Pro SV with the, what is it, 72 millimeter? No, the 77 millimeter filter thread. And it's very important because this is a lens that is very close to the Ingenue 24 to 70 cinema lens. There's rumors that Tokina helped develop the Ingenue, or Ingenue helped develop the 28 to 70, whichever way you want to hear it. But it is as parfocal as you can expect a camera lens to be, but uh, it's got a nice, very vintage quality to the rendering of the frame because of the glass. Um, I swapped over to it with a speed booster on the Olympus so that I'd have more room, because I kept hitting my head on the 18 to 25 or 18 to 35 with the speed booster. So I popped the Tokina on there to give me a little bit more headroom so I don't hit it so much, and that so you don't see it in the frame of the face cam here. So we're slowly getting to where we need to be with this. I am kind of disappointed at how slow it's been and how long it's taken to get these lenses out. But I'm getting it done, and we are marching. We are marching slowly to the finish line, which is what matters, right? One of my fears in doing this Kickstarter is ending up on, if you're familiar with it, which I probably will end up on it at one point here, is r/shitty Kickstarters. It's a subreddit for scam or disappointing Kickstarters. And I think the way that I handled the execution of this after it got funded is, I think it's deserving to be on shitty Kickstarters just because I dropped the ball so hard on everything that came after Kickstarter, you know. Um, it's my fear of ending up there, but I realize that if I do end up there, it's really my own fault for ending up there, right? Because um, I did drop the ball, but I'm getting it done. Um, slowly but surely, just like the turtle. I'm gonna finish this because people have supported me for it. So I owe it to them to get it out and to make sure that what they get is what I said they'd get, you know. Oh boy, time is flying, isn't it? It's already 6. So this weekend I did a little bit of reorganizing and a little bit of inventory. So I'm going to be starting up the printers again this week, and I'm going to be printing out some parts that I need so that I can keep up with production the way that it's going. And then also I need to get the resin printers going again. I've got pretty much all I need for these focusing tracks printed, but I still need maybe a few more, and then I can actually move on to something that I've been trying to get to, which is injection molding. So I have a box of failed prints that I've been saving so that I can use them or recycle them instead of having to just dispose of them, to make things like pins. And I think the most recent idea I had was to make Game Boy buttons, because I don't think I can make Game Boy shells because the amount of shot that I have in the injection mold is like 3 ounces. So that's probably enough for a pin or for a button or two, right? And I've got a bunch of just PETG that's scrapped because it didn't print out correctly or I ran out of filament before it finished printing. But it's just a way for me to reduce the impact I have as a person who makes things and prints things, because I recognize, as in my experience as a graphic designer and a general artist, right, for hire, freelance artist, there's quite a bit of trash that you accumulate, that you make for everything that you you design or that you draw or that you illustrate. And I think it's important that we recognize these things and we try to mitigate, what we produce. Um, and I really do uh, want to reduce the impact that I have generating so much plastic waste. Um, and I think so long as we can get an additional use for the the material, I think that's like bare minimum, right? Like we can at least use it one more time than than what it was used for. I'm if you guys are keeping up with 3D printing news, there's a uh, there was a guy on Reddit who found a method or made a method to recycle PET bottles, right? So these are PET bottles, which is your standard water bottle or your standard 2 liter soda bottle. And there's recently, I think there was an update either by him or from somebody else in the community, um, and they were able to make spools of PET. So while most of us know that recycling is a scam because the way that the corporations implemented it made it very confusing, and there's really no proper way of recycling a lot of the plastics that are made out there. I think this is one of the ways that we can help mitigate plastic waste. We can actually turn it into something else. I think it's so exciting, right? Like I want to sit down and do it, right? So I can see how it works and how I can further mitigate some of the issues that I have with waste production and 3D printing. Um, I think it's just a fantastic thing, 3D printing. It's like future, man, future stuff. Um, and I know this idea of personal responsibility. It's kind of moot in the society that we live in or in the world that we live in because let's be honest, individual responsibility may make up some of the pollution that we have, but I mean the majority of what's going on is big corporation trying to shift blame onto us. And I mean, what can we do, right? Nothing. Well, I don't think there's anything we can do, or I can do at least. I think there are better people out there um, who are more capable of doing something. And sure, that's might be a cop out. Um, but really, I think it's like a David and Goliath thing, man. Our waste footprint is, I think it's predicated on what's available to us, right? And the economy that we have. And if we can't make choices that are both good for the environment and for ourselves, um, I think we have to look at ourselves first, right? I mean, that's always how it is, right? The ultimate goal of humanity is to survive, and if I can't get by day to day, then why would I, or how can I look at the greater impact of what I'm doing? But yeah, sorry about the tangent. I've got some resin that is high temp resistant resin, which is what they use for the DIY injection molding. What I'd like to do is start printing out bucks. I don't know if you'd call them bucks, forms, so I can start testing out how it works and to get a hang of it. Because I need to make some ABS quick disconnects for one of the backers, which is really only one person who backed for the camera strap. So I need to make ABS quick disconnects for a camera strap. And that is the method I'm going to use so that I can actually make it. Um, so once I get the last of these focus rings printed with the resin printer, I can move on to other things. I'm actually looking into making some Kydex holsters for a military surplus gun from CZ. It's the CZ82. I mean, there are some Kydex holsters out there, but I don't like the way they look, and I think um, I could make something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing with the resin printer. So with that, I would be using the resin printer with the high temp resin to make bucks for the vacuum forming. And I actually did this, but this was like back in college. There's we had to design some packaging, some food packaging or I guess sustainable food packaging. And I used vacuum forming to make a like a to-go box kind of, but my idea was that I'd be using at the time, like 2011, 2010, 2011, biodegradable plastics from cornstarch and potato starch were a big thing. But now they're not so much, and I think there's another environmental reason for them not, or for them falling out of favor. But that's the idea. I'd be using some sort of um, biodegradable plastic for packaging, right? But I used vacuum forming to make the final form for that project, and it's surprisingly easy. It's just making sure that you get uh, making sure that you get the material heated up properly and evenly. After that, the buck, relatively simple to make. The vacuum chamber, or not the vacuum chamber, but that vacuum box, pretty simple to make. I mean, you can use what I used when I did it was a shop vac, a 10-gallon shop vac, um, and that was more than enough to get the suction I needed to um, get the plastic fully formed around the buck. Um, and that's all it is for Kydex holsters, right? It's vacuum forming um, and making sure that your buck um, has the proper amount of drainage so that uh, the air can be pulled throughout the entire mold. Um, but there are so many projects in the back of my head that need to get done, but can't get done until I finish this because I'm a dumbass, right? Um, then on top of that, I need to get the Fuji APS-C and Sony APS-C versions going. I've got a lot of requests um, for Micro Four Thirds, but Micro Four Thirds is the sensor is too small for anything that I can make, right? I know Panasonic already has a stereoscopic lens out there. I think it's like a 25 millimeter or a 12.5 millimeter, one of those. And that's usually where I direct people when they request that because it makes the most sense to use what's already out there. And Panasonic already has a stereoscopic lens. All you really need to do is to tape off the electrical contacts so that you'll get exposure across the frame from the 12.5 millimeter lens. Okay. Um, all right, let's get back to it. There it is. Uh, guess I'll let go if I could. So the focusing mechanism, getting back to design talk, um, the focusing mechanism took me maybe like a year to develop. Uh, it 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 was floating around in my head for about a year without an actual way of actually knowing how to do it. And that was the biggest part that I had to overcome. Because while I know it works because I've seen it work on commercial products, um, this type of design I couldn't do, or I couldn't figure out how to make in Shapered 3D. Um, and it was only maybe until the beginning of last year or the beginning of this year, um, or possibly the end of last year, where I finally sat down and figured out how to make it correct, right? Because before I was just doing the rotate the rectangle, extrude it down, um, cut it out of the focusing mechanism, but that always introduced that jagged stair step between the circle and the track itself. And I don't know what it was that made me realize I needed to rotate that square, but I was sitting down at like, I want to say this was like 11 o'clock at night. Um, I was working on the Polaroid rehousing, and it just came to me that if I did the rotation right, I would be able to get the circle, the circumference of the circle, um, the edge of the rectangle would be the diameter of the circle, and it would be within the bounds of the circle to make it a better or a perfect track. And once I did that, I spent like, or once I drew it out and I drafted it, I was literally just up celebrating for like an hour, right? Like this is something that's been bugging me and something that's been something that was slowing down lens production because, or I guess slowing down the slowing down me in making lens designs that were easier to make and easier to assemble, because everything before that was complicated helicoil that required like 3 or 4 parts for it to work correctly, right? You need uh, the base helicoil, which is what your focusing mechanism is interfacing with, so that it can focus, right? So it's got threads, and then your focusing uh, mechanism has threads, and then it also has threads on um, uh, the lens group or the lens element, right? And then you also have to have like a straight track so that uh, the lens itself can ride correctly and it will always be engaged forward and backwards instead of spinning freely. So I mean, the what you had to do to get something functional was it was always ridiculous, right? Like it was such a chore to make something that actually interfaced correctly and it turned the way that you wanted it to. You'd have these long focus throws, which I'm not too much of a fan of. I know um, some people might be, but I mean, long focus throws is just a pain, you know? Like I have a Mamiya, a 55 millimeter Mamiya Sakura. This thing is like, it's like 180, maybe 270 degrees of rotation, right, to focus. And while that's fine for pinpoint accuracy, I mean, honestly, who needs this, right? this degree of focus, I think it's fine if you're doing like studio work or if you're doing things in a very controlled environment. But I mean, in the real world, you need to get to a rough focus, and then from there you can, move it slight enough to where it is in focus entirely. Um, and this method of producing a focusing mechanism on with 3D printing is much more reliable, right? The threads won't tear out. Um, the threads won't tear out. The alignment will always be correct when you assemble, and you have a very exact method of defining certain parameters to get you exactly what you need, and then all you have to do is build around it, right? Um, yeah, so I mean, it took me like, if we're talking about like design development too, it took me about a year to get it going, right? Like I can see it in my head, I just can't see it on paper yet. And that little push with the Polaroid adapter just crystallized everything for me in terms of how I was able to make something like this, because um, it to me it looks very simple in my head, but learning how to do it and to manipulate the program to do what I need it to do was one of the hardest things, because um, I'm still a relative uh, still relatively new when it comes to drafting. What I did in college was I studied visual communications or graphic design, so right, like I can make things look nice, but I don't understand engineering as well as I should, or as well as I need to. I don't think I was smart enough to um, major in engineering, because I don't think I have the background analytically and with mathematics to be a competent engineer. Um, but yeah, spent like an hour or two just celebrating that I figured it out. It's great, man. It's a great feeling. Which is when I actually started development of this particular lens, right? Like the moment I figured out how to do this, I started working on getting everything I needed, all the parts and stuff designed, and all the lenses to come in, so I could prototype it, right? So I could make the MVP, the minimum viable product. And once I figured everything out, like parts, everything just kind of fell into place. Um, the design came into play, fell into place. Uh, yeah, well, everything else fell into place afterwards, because I was able to figure out how to make a simple enough focus mechanism that could be replicated easy. Um, and then I worked on building the top half of the lens, which is this part here. Um, and this part is entirely interchangeable between every lens mount. So the only thing that's different is a few modifications to the rear end, which is just the lens mount itself. Uh, by doing that, I made doing it this way made it less arduous, I would say, to print, because all I'd have to do is print the upper half and then lower half, which upper half is all the same part, has all the same parts, and then lower half maybe like 5 or 6 different parts that are specific to the lens, uh, to make everything kind of streamlined, I guess. kind of what like Samyang does, and like Tokina and all those other different lens manufacturers. That's really all they do. They make the front end and then modify the rear end slightly so that everything fits correctly. And I think that's the way to do it. Ah, all right. Oh boy, it's already 7. We're getting there. Um, I going back to the longboarding stuff. I kind of like I've been trying to find a good place to do a long distance longboard over in Atlanta and in like Florida, but there's nothing really out here. Like for the life of me, I can't understand why the roads out here are so poorly maintained, you know? Um, when I was in California, the road from there are literally you could walk from Sacramento to San Francisco if you were determined enough to do it, right? Um, everything is fairly accessible. Maybe a few parts where I had to walk on the freeway. Funny story. I was um, so there's a road from Antioch into so from Antioch to Concord, I think, or Concord to Antioch, one of those two, right? There's a bridge that you need to pass, and that's the only way to get from Antioch to Concord or Concord to Antioch. So I was walking up this bridge, right? And I'm fine walking up the bridge. Like I've got no issues with it. I'm on the far end, and I really can't do anything besides walk, right? I'm not gonna walk through the marsh. So this PT Cruiser pulls up next to me. He's like, "Hey, just get in the car. It's not safe for you to be walking on the freeway." I'm like, "Oh shit, I can't be holding up traffic, right?" So I get in the car, right? He's like, "This dude's super nice. Him and his girlfriend are super nice." We're like, "Hey, yeah. I'll just drop you off on the next stop over." They're just talking amongst themselves, and I'm like, "Yeah, just drop me off at the Safeway if you can." And so he does that, and to me, I didn't see an issue with that. Um, because dude's just being nice. Him and his lady are just being nice, right? Um, but when I get back, I'm telling some coworkers about what I did, and they're like, "Oh man, you should probably be careful." I'm like, "What? What? Why? Dude's just being nice, right?" And that was probably one of the. It was, I guess, a humanizing human. It emphasized or re-emphasized the humanity in people, right? That people are still nice. And I'm like, dude's just being nice. Like I would do that, right? Like why wouldn't you? Um, so he was nice enough to give me a ride across to the Safeway. Um, yeah, that dude was a solid dude. Um, but yeah, right. Like the roads in California are super accessible, right? You can walk or you can ride your bike from one place to the next, even though they're like hundreds of miles away, right? Like you can go from Los Angeles, I think, to San Francisco on either the one or some road adjacent to the one. There's a belt line that goes all the way up, right? You can take your bike and do that if you really wanted to, which is something I'm gonna do, right? Right now I'm not in the best condition, like physically. What I'm trying to say is, uh, yeah, I'm unfit for physical activity. But um, it's still one of my goals to ride from Los Angeles San Francisco. That was the other trip that I wanted to take longboarding. That's about like 300 or 400 miles, and I think it's totally doable, right? Like you just have to prep for it. And my general method of packing for this stuff is to pack as light as possible. Um, you know, I had mainly Cliff Bars and beef jerky, and what's that stuff? The electrolyte stuff, the salt packages, so that you wouldn't cramp up. Um, and then a Camelback, right? That's all I had. Is travel light and with, I guess, energy dense foods. Um, I know it's possible because I know I used to go on I used to frequent silverfish longboarding, and there's always dudes from like Texas. They're going from one city in Texas to the next city, and they're just longboarding. I'm like, these guys are crazy. And then there's a guy who did, I think he longboarded through China with like a hitch on his longboard. So he custom designed a hitch to carry a trailer, to carry his stuff, and he longboarded across China. Which, these guys are bonkers, right? So I'm thinking to myself, like, if they can do it, I surely I can do it, right? Like, even if it's not as long or as far as they've gone, I can do it, right? Um, yeah, so I'm still planning on doing San Francisco to LA, or LA to San Francisco. It's just I have to get back into shape. The last thing I did was a marathon back in 2019 or 2020. Beginning in 2020, I did 2019. What did I do? I ran the Ameris marathon, and I was kind of disappointed in the time that I got. I had I think it was like 6 hours, which, all right, arguably I didn't think I would finish it when I was running it. I'll take 6 hours, right? Um, but I ideally would have wanted somewhere like 4 or 5 hours. I would have been happier with that. Um, so I just need to get back into shape, so that I can run another marathon before doing the LA to San Francisco trip. Um, there there is something, and I'm not a spiritual person or a religious person at all, but there's something truly um, like freeing about it, right? Like you just feel at peace. There's nobody there to bother you except maybe yourself. And that's yeah, just trying to get back to it. I've been trying to find something similar, and I know for maybe a few years I kept hearing about some sort of green belt line in Florida, but like they've never actually done anything. And the rural roads in the South and in the East Coast here, they're absolutely terrible, right? The road conditions terrible. I would need to get pneumatic tires or air tires to be able to go on them with a longboard. Um, I haven't been able to find anything, and I haven't been able to find anything anywhere really to longboard like recreationally. It's kind of disappointing. Um, and that's kind of frustrating about the South. It's there's no there's no real consideration for the pedestrian or for the biker, right? And I don't like I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, cars are bad or stuff like that, but there's no real accommodations for something like that because I don't think it's physically possible for the South to accommodate for that. It's such a well, Atlanta in general, it's such a spread out city, right? And to actually get anywhere and to create routes that make sense for commuters just seems like impossible. But you know, back to it is I think it's just there's not a I'm really disappointed in the quality of pedestrian walkways that are interlinked between cities in the Atlanta area. Um, Maybe I haven't tried hard enough, but it's just the small roads in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs of Atlanta are two-way roads with no shoulder, right? So when I'm driving on these roads, and I see a biker, it's like these guys are I think they're kind of crazy to be riding their bikes on the road um, when it's only two lanes. Because if you've been to Atlanta, you know the type of drivers that are in Atlanta. They are the most impatient. They are the most aggressive drivers that you've ever encountered. And to take that chance to ride a bike on a two-way road or two-lane road is I think bonkers, man. Because Atlanta drivers do not care. They speed, they weave in and out of traffic. And before moving to Atlanta, this is I hardly saw cars on the freeway pulled over dead, right? I've hardly seen um, like debris on the road, like car tires and car bumpers and stuff like that. But coming to Atlanta, my God, every day on the 85 and the 75, cars dead on the shoulder, tires, remnants of tires and bumpers on the shoulder. It's mind-boggling. I guess it's just the density of Atlanta, but man, I think if people didn't treat the 85 and the 75 like NASCAR or some sort of um, motorsport, I there'd definitely be less of the debris there, man. It's bonkers. But yeah, I haven't been able to find anything suitable to longboard around. Even downtown, like I was under the impression uh, Atlanta was a Atlanta had a thriving downtown for some reason. But I mean, it's hardly even walkable, man. It's actually pretty disappointing what Atlanta has to offer for like downtown accommodations. Um, and I mean, this is coming from somebody who lived in Sacramento for like 12 years, 10 or 12 years, right? Like Sacramento, it's gotten all right downtown, but it's at least walkable and at least there are venues downtown that you can go to, right? Every Saturday, every first Saturday they have a what the art walk. It's second Saturday. Every second Saturday is an art walk. The Midtown community is thriving. Downtown is fairly walkable and it's a good place to longboard. And I was under the impression, as big as Atlanta is, as popular as Atlanta is, that it would have a better downtown than Sacramento, but it's equally or almost more quiet than Sacramento. It's bonkers. Just give me somewhere to longboard, man. But yeah, once I find that place, once I find the a good path to longboard in Atlanta, I'm probably gonna do something. I'll probably have to figure something out. I want to do. I probably have to do a coastal longboard run, maybe Savannah or something like that. Augusta to Savannah, Savannah to Hilton Head, Hilton Head, South Carolina, or something like that. Um, yeah, I'll have to look into that. Getting kind of antsy, having to drive everywhere because Atlanta is impossible to get anywhere without a car. Hmm. I will be right back. Gotta get some water. Sound back on. Camera's back on. All right, let's wrap up this focus session. Oh, on the longboarding, each time I went, it took like 3 days to get there, to cover about 110 miles. And to me, I'm like, whenever I see like backpackers, they're trekking like 20, 30 miles a day, and like that's essentially what I was doing, but on a longboard. I'm like, Jesus, I need to step up my longboarding game, man, because I mean these guys are walking faster than I can longboard. So many things, so many things that I need to improve on. Um, but I do think I will be going back to the Ameris Marathon maybe in the following year. This year, I can hardly even run a 5K under 30 minutes, which is what I was hitting, which is what I was consistently hitting when I was training for the marathon. Right now, I'm at like 32 minutes. Uh, right, I was at 9 miles an hour, 9 minute miles when I was training for the marathon. Now I'm at like 10 or 11. Um, so I've got to, I've got to train a little harder this year, so that I can be ready for the Ameris Marathon. Now that I know uh, now that I've run a marathon and I know what to expect, the my training will be uh, less relaxed, I guess. I followed that one guy's plan. You know, the whenever you search up running plans or marathon training, there's always that one guy who has like a who's always recommended because I mean he knows what he's talking about. Um, but ideally, I think I need to train a little harder so that I can get closer to that 4 or 5 hour mark. And speaking of marathon running, I think Kipchoge broke another record, running like a 2 hour, 2 hour like 1 or 2 minute marathon. Absolutely bonkers! That guy can travel so fast or cover so much distance in the time that it takes me to run a half marathon. Kipchoge is an absolute monster when it comes to running, man. Oh, speaking of longboarding, because I'm the only one talking, uh, my longboard is it was my first foray into um, composites. So it's a plywood skeleton shell. So my typical method of laying up a longboard was to vacuum press sheets of Baltic birch plywood, which in terms of durability is maybe not on par with the maple construction, but it is actually a very strong, very valid method of developing and making longboards. So what I did for my this version was um, I hollowed out the plywood blank so that there was maybe an eighth left on top to act as a skin. Um, More so to act as a way to contain the foam, the expanding foam that I was going to be using, which is very similar to what you'd be using or what you'd be doing for, I guess, composite longboards that use a skeleton shell or a rib. So with my longboard, I just cored out some of the material of the plywood um, blank, and then I picked up some U.S. West expanding foam. I think it was a medium weight, somewhere around there, and I just used the foam to fill in the interior or the cavity left by hollowing out the blank. Um, and once that's set, I sanded it down so that it was flush with um, the curvature um, of the blank, right? Because I pressed in a curve for um, every blank when I press it in the vacuum press. Um, and then what I did was I took a sheet of carbon fiber and I epoxied the top, and then I epoxied the bottom to cover up the uh, hollowed out and foam cored interior. And this is what it does is it ends up being a lighter weight but much more durable longboard because because of the carbon fiber skin. Um, and one of the mistakes, I bring this up because one of the mistakes that I did when longboarding to San Francisco the second time was I brought a 5 foot, a 5 foot long, 3/4 inch thick plywood longboard. And to me, I was like, this might be easier because there's more springs, so a lot more of the road vibrations would be absorbed or it would be dampened. But I was just wrong. I was incorrect in my assumption. It was a pain to carry that and to ride it. This this latest version is it's stiffer but lightweight, and I think it'll handle the road vibrations just the same. There'll probably be no difference in road feel um, between the two. So I chucked the 5 foot board a while ago because it's just absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason to there's no reason for me to have that. All right, so that wraps up the focus portion. Let's see where we're at with time. We might end this one a little early. We got like 20 minutes left, but just to wrap up, I guess on Wednesday, that's the day. On Wednesday, more than likely be starting on uh, more than likely be starting on 70 to 80. I don't know if there will be a design portion talk in the beginning. Maybe there will be. Um, I guess, yeah, sure. We'll make some design talk. We'll probably talk about mounts or how to get into, adapting lenses for yourself if you want to get into it. Um, I've been getting questions about that, and I don't really know how to answer that except to show people how to do it, um, which is something that I've been working on in my head, like I usually do. Um, is a little course, like an introductory course on how to start designing lenses or how to adapt lenses to certain camera systems. Which I mean, like it's not hard. It just takes time. Like the way that I see it is, um, all you're really doing is making circles. So yeah, all you're doing is making circles until it fits correctly. Um, but yeah, we'll talk a little bit on how to start adapting lenses or how to start adapting lenses and what techniques and what basic things that I usually do before getting into a new lens adaptor or lens rehousing. Um, Appreciate you guys for watching today. I'll catch you guys Wednesday. I know not very many people are watching, but it's nice to not lose my mind talking to myself. Right now, I'm shouting into the void and nobody's listening, which is just fine. Somebody out there maybe. Uh, and yeah, have a good one. See you guys.